I woke up as a baby. That sounds crazy, but it's true. In my past life, I was a low-level cultivator named Junkai. I was weak, only at the third stage of chi refining. I snuck into a secret realm to find a rare herb that could change my luck. But two powerful beings started fighting above, and the whole place fell apart. Space itself cracked open. I got pulled into a rift, holding nothing but a small jade token. Then I opened my eyes again, as a newborn. Everything was blurry, but I could tell this wasn't my old world. There were brass pipes on the ceiling with glowing blue lines. Machines clanked outside. Steam hissed everywhere. My new mother held me and called me Little Alan. My new father, covered in coal dust and oil, blessed me from a book with a gear on its spine. My name is Alan Hawk now. I'm the 13th child of the Hawk family, living in the 6th gear district of Silverglow City. Over the next few months, I figured out as much as I could. This world runs on two things: steam machines and magic. My father fixes steam cores, engines that use not just gears, but also glowing silver patterns. My mother is a low-level magic weaver. The neighbors light fires with rune plates. Guards carry brass devices instead of guns. Airships cross the sky instead of planes. It's a strange mix of technology and spells. When I was 3 months old, I watched my mother stop raindrops in midair and shape them into a tiny bird. It wasn't like the magic I knew before. It felt more like a set of hidden rules being followed, orderly, almost scientific. But what really got my attention was the dream. Every time I fell into deep sleep, my mind would drift into a foggy space. Floating in the middle was that same jade token from my old life. It glowed softly, and behind it I could barely make out the shape of a door. I tried to reach it every time, but something always pushed me back. That changed when I turned 6 months old. My family took me to a church called the Eye of Knowledge for a blessing. The chapel had no statues, just a huge metal eye floating above the altar, its pupil made of spinning gears. A priest in silver robes touched my forehead with a metal staff. The moment it touched me, I felt something scan my soul. Deep inside, the jade token started shaking hard. It glowed brighter than ever. The blurry door behind it became clear, an old jade door with light flowing across its surface like water. The priest paused. He said my soul reading was unusual, but still normal. He wrote me down as fine and told my parents to test me for magic at age 7. But I knew something had happened. When the staff pulled away, that jade door had cracked open, just barely, thinner than a hair. And through that tiny gap, a strange energy leaked out. It wasn't spiritual energy or magic. It was something older and deeper. With it came a message: origin realm bound. Severely damaged. Repairing. No functions available. First repair complete in 6 years. 6 years. As my mother carried me out into the cold, a steam carriage rumbled by. Factory chimneys filled the sky with dark smoke. This world has its own rules, its own power, its own faith. And hidden deep in my soul, there's a sealed treasure from my old life, slowly waking up. 6 years. That's how long I had to wait. I kept repeating it in my head, even though I was just a baby lying in my mother's arms. But I wasn't going to waste that time. The jade gate deep in my soul was slowly fixing itself. Through the tiny crack, I could feel things: the smell of earth, the sound of water, traces of something ancient. It was faint, but it was real. My baby brain was growing fast, and my old soul was settling into this new body. The biggest change was that my memories from my past life started coming back, not all at once, but in flashes, like puzzle pieces clicking into place. One day, I watched my mother cut an apple with a small knife carved with runes. A blue light flashed along the blade. The cut was perfectly smooth, and the fruit barely turned brown. That tiny moment triggered something deep inside me. I remembered being Zheng Kai, 15 years old, kneeling on a cold stone floor in a weapon workshop. I had spent 3 months gathering materials and 7 sleepless nights forging a sword. Senior brother Zhang, a cultivator far stronger than me, picked it up, called it junk, and threw it into the furnace. I remembered my fingers digging into the cracks of the floor, nails breaking and bleeding. I remembered the cold feeling in my chest, the hunger for power, the desperate need to break free from a world that crushed people like me. That's why I entered the mystic nether secret realm when I heard it was opening. The odds of surviving were terrible, but even a tiny chance was enough for someone with nothing to lose. I started crying without meaning to. My mother picked me up and held me close. I buried my face in her clothes and breathed. The memory wasn't just pictures. It was raw emotion burned into my soul. Shame, anger, a near mad will to survive. After that, I soaked up everything around me like a sponge. I listened to my parents talk at dinner. I caught bits of my older siblings' school stories. I picked up conversations drifting in through the window. Here's what I learned. This world is called Etherland. It has 7 great kingdoms and many smaller city-states. The Phoenix United Kingdom, where I live, is one of the strongest industrial nations. There are 2 main paths of power here. The first is the mechanic path, people who study steam engines, runes, and gears to build and maintain machines. The best ones can even create thinking constructs. The second is the wizard path, people who use magical energy. They might control elements, draw runes, or summon creatures. But you need a natural gift for magic, and that gets tested at age 7. There are other jobs too, church knights, potion masters, alchemists, but they all come down to one thing: knowledge. Knowledge is what matters most in this world. My father isn't rich, but he fills our shelves with books. Rune guides, steam manuals, kingdom laws, plant atlases. He believes reading can change your fate. I couldn't agree more. But I have my own way of learning. Every night, after everyone falls asleep, I let my mind sink deep and reach toward the Jade Gate. The crack is still hair-thin, but the energy coming through it gets clearer every day. It feels like life itself: soil, water, growth. I also found that my mind can touch the crack, not physically, but on a soul level. When I focus hard enough, I feel a pull, like something on the other side is calling me. One night, in my 7th month, I decided to try. I gathered the small bit of spiritual sense I still had from my old life and carefully reached into the crack. The gate shook hard. A flood of images crashed into my mind. I saw a vast, empty void. 2 figures were fighting inside it. One wore blue robes. Every wave of his sleeve made thousands of blue lotuses bloom and die. The other was wrapped in black mist filled with pale eyes. Their battle cracked space itself and destroyed the secret realm. I saw my old self, Zhongkai, falling into a rift, clutching the jade token. The token glowed, wrapped around my soul, and then hit something, like a bubble forming into a world. My eyes snapped open. Steam pipes hummed above me. Factories roared outside. But my heart was pounding, because a clear message had appeared in my mind. The Jade Gate had detected my soul crossing between worlds. It was adjusting itself to work in this new world. The compatibility was about 70%. There had been a problem with time, but it was fixed. And then came the part that changed everything. The time ratio inside the gate's space compared to the outside world was 365 to 1. One day out here meant 1 full year inside. I lay in bed that night, staring at the glowing blue lines on the ceiling, and I smiled. A real smile, the kind that comes when you finally see a way forward. In my old life, I was at the bottom. I had to risk everything just for scraps. But now, I had a cave heaven where time moved 365 times faster than the outside world. Even if it needed 5 more years to fully repair, that didn't scare me. 5 years out here meant almost 2,000 years inside. 2,000 years to learn, to grow, to prepare. Then I cried, for real this time, because my diaper was wet. My mother got up and changed me. My father grumbled about how much energy I had. They had no idea what was going on inside my head. I let my mind sink back toward the Jade Gate. Through the crack, I could now see a little more. There was a patch of dark soil, maybe 10 square meters, with a faint light glowing above it like a tiny sun. Gray mist swirled at the edges, waiting. I sent a thought toward the gate. I need seeds. Any kind. No answer came. But I felt something shift. The crack opened for just a split second, and a tiny breath of energy flowed out, through my soul, and down into my right index finger. The next morning, my mother took me to the market. It was loud and messy, food smells, coal smoke, shouting vendors, steam cart whistles. As we passed a stall selling dried fruits and seeds, my right hand shot out on its own. I grabbed a burlap sack hanging from the edge. The old woman running the stall laughed and scooped out a handful of mixed seeds for me to play with. Oats, dried beans, some wild seeds, and 3 brown ones with faint spiral patterns on them. The moment I touched those 3 seeds, something deep in my soul hummed. It was soft, like a sleeping giant breathing out. I felt warmth spread from my fingertips. My first plan had begun. I hid those 3 spiral seeds under my crib mattress. It wasn't easy. My baby fingers were clumsy, and I had to dodge my mother's cleaning and diaper changes. But I managed. Those seeds were my hope, my only link to the space where time moved hundreds of times faster. I grew like any normal baby on the outside. I said, Mama and Papa at 8 months. I started walking at 10 months. On my first birthday, the whole family came together. My 5 older siblings brought gifts, a wind-up duck, building blocks, a little jumpsuit with a gear pattern. We sat around the table under the warm glow of a kerosene lamp. My father cut the cake. My mother laughed while playing with my eldest sister's baby. It was a simple, happy family moment. But I knew I wasn't meant for a simple life. My father gave me a small cloth bag as his gift. Inside were coins, brass ones with gears stamped on them, silver ones with open books, and 1 dark gold coin with the Eye of Knowledge on it. My brother Robert explained the system. 100 brass coins made 1 silver, 10 silver made 1 gold. I held the gold coin tight. Pocket money. That was exactly what I needed. From age 1 to 2, I started collecting. Every time my mother took me to the market, I pulled her toward the seed stalls. I pointed at sacks and made excited noises. She thought it was cute. Maybe he wants to be a gardener, she joked. My father said that wouldn't be bad. But I had a clear goal. I needed as many different kinds of seeds as I could get. And I needed a safe, hidden place to store and test them. On my second birthday, I could finally speak in full sentences. I sat on a kitchen chair, watching my mother cook, and said my first real request. Mom, I want a box. My mother laughed when I asked for a box. She thought I wanted a treasure chest, just like my brother Robert did when he was little. She found an old wooden box in the storage room, about the size of a shoebox, cleaned it up, and handed it to me. It's yours now, young man. I hugged it tight. Step 1 was done. Over the next few months, I found all kinds of ways to get seeds. I used what I call my cute strategy. I'd lean on Mrs. Miller's windowsill and stare at her herbs with big eyes until she gave me a sprig of mint or basil. I made trades too, swapping colorful blocks my siblings gave me for dried seed pods a neighborhood boy found by the river. But the real game started when I began spending my pocket money. At 2.5, I went out on my own for the first time. Well, my mother followed 5 steps behind me, but it felt like freedom. I walked to the general stall run by the same old woman who had given me seeds when I was a baby. I pointed at a bag of pumpkin seeds. How much? 3 copper coins. I crouched down, opened my box, and counted them out one by one. After that, I came back every week. Pumpkin, pea, carrot, tomato, always the cheapest seeds. The old woman probably thought I was just a kid playing pretend, so she'd throw in a little extra for free. But I was keeping careful records. I used charcoal to make marks inside my box that only I could read. Dates, prices, and most importantly, how long each seed took to sprout. I ran tests in a cracked flower pot on my windowsill. Carrots took 5 days. Peas took 3. Tomatoes took 7. Those numbers would matter later, when my hidden world finally opened. Then, in late autumn of my 3rd year, something happened that changed how I thought about everything. I was checking my windowsill garden when I heard shouting from the street. I looked down and saw men in black uniforms surrounding my father. They were yelling about a contract, something about a steam core maintenance deal with the city hall. My father tried to explain that a pipeline had exploded last month and his team had worked 4 days straight without sleep, which delayed other jobs. But they didn't care. They handed my mother a document with a red stamp and left. That night, dinner was silent. Robert gripped his fork until his knuckles went white. My sister Liliana quietly cut her only piece of meat in half and put it on our father's plate. I said, Dad. He looked up and forced a smile. It's all right, Alan. Eat your dinner. Dad will handle it. But I saw the red in his eyes. I heard my mother crying softly in the kitchen. Late that night, I sat on my bed with my wooden box. Inside were 17 kinds of seeds I'd collected over 3 years and a small pouch of savings for silver coins and about 20 copper ones. That was roughly a month's pay for a regular worker. For the debt my father owed, it was nothing. But the money wasn't the point. What hit me was a simple truth. To survive in this world, I needed real money. A lot of it. My secret realm was my greatest advantage, but it still needed over 3 years to finish its first repair. I couldn't just sit and wait. I opened the box and touched each seed bag until my fingers stopped on the smallest one. I bought it 3 months ago for just 1 copper coin. The label said, glow moss, common in abandoned mines, faintly luminous. I tested it out of curiosity. The seeds sprouted in total darkness within 3 days. In 7 days, they grew into a soft, glowing green carpet. At the time, I thought it was interesting but useless. But tonight, staring out at the dim gas lamps on the street, an idea hit me. I climbed out of bed and pulled a small metal can from underneath it, one I'd found in the backyard, and cleaned up for experiments. Inside was damp soil from the riverbank, and on top of it grew a thin layer of softly glowing green moss. I stared at it, and my eyes got brighter and brighter. The next morning, I carried my wooden box to my father's workshop. I opened it and showed him my seed packets and 4 silver coins. For you, Dad, to help pay back what you owe. His hands shook. He knelt down and hugged me hard. Silly boy, Dad can't take your money. It's not enough anyway. It's enough, I said. Then I pulled out the metal can with the glow moss inside. When I opened the lid, the soft green light filled the dim workshop. My father's eyes went wide. Night glow moss. Where did you get this? Bought it. 1 copper coin. I could see the idea forming in his head. The moss wasn't rare, but it spread fast in the right conditions. And the city had just announced a project to put cheap, permanent lighting in the sewers and underground tunnels. Steam lamps cost too much. Gas lamps were dangerous. Magic lamps were way over budget. But glow moss? 1 copper coin's worth could cover a huge area. My father grabbed the jar and ran out the door without even changing his clothes. He came home late that night, but the worry was gone from his face. The deputy minister at City Hall had seen the sample and wanted to sign a long-term contract. The advance payment alone would clear our debts and buy new equipment for the workshop. Everyone cheered. I sat quietly in the corner, watching. 1 bag of glow moss cost 1 copper coin, and inside my secret space, I had 10 square meters of dark soil where time moved 365 times faster. My father looked at me with a strange expression. Alan, how did you come up with this? I blinked and gave him my best 3-year-old smile. Because it's shiny and pretty. He stared at me for a long time, then sighed and picked me up. That night, after I was supposed to be asleep, I heard my parents whispering in the kitchen. That child is different, Evelyn. I know. The priest said his soul wavelength was unusual when he was 6 months old. The glow moss thing, it's too much for a coincidence. And Aunt Martha says he comes every week to buy seeds and ask sharp questions. Do you think he might be one of those people your grandfather talked about? I don't know. But if he is, we have to protect him. Don't tell anyone, not even the church. I lay in bed with my eyes open, listening. Those people? What did that mean? I reached under my mattress and felt the 3 spiral-patterned seeds. They were warm in my hand, like they were responding to me. The hidden realm still needed 3 more years to open. But some things didn't have to wait. I could start learning about this world's magic potions. I could find out what my parents meant by those people. And I could use the glow moss money to buy rarer seeds. I let my mind sink toward the jade gate. The crack was just slightly wider than before. I reached out and touched it. This time, a clear message came back, energy absorbing. Repair progress, 0.7%. 3 years and 2 months. I could wait. The glow moss contract changed everything for my family. The advance payment cleared our debts, and my father upgraded his workshop machines. Orders came flooding in, not just from City Hall, but from factories and shops all across the 6th Gear District. Because of all this, I got a special reward, 2 silver coins a week as a seed research fund. The boy has talent, my father told my mother. Aunt Martha says his questions are always sharp. Maybe he could become a potion master. That was the first time I heard him say those words out loud. I played dumb and asked, "What's a potion master?" He sat down and explained. Potion masters use different materials to create magical potions. Ones that heal wounds, boost strength, or control fire and frost. They're not wizards. Wizards control magic directly. Potion masters rely on knowledge, recipes, and careful work. But the best ones are just as respected. A single powerful potion can save an army or help a wizard break through years of limits. Something flickered in his eyes as he said it. A complicated look I couldn't quite read. I didn't ask about it. I just nodded, took the new leather notebook he'd bought me, and went to my room. On the first page, in my messy handwriting, I wrote, Potion Notes. Alan Hawke, started at 3.5 years old. My first entry was simple. Luminous moss, glowing principle unknown. Grows quickly. May absorb weak magic energy. Needs testing. By my 4th birthday, I had collected 32 kinds of seeds. Besides regular vegetables and herbs, I started buying stranger seeds from Aunt Martha's stall. Silver thread grass with lines on its leaves that supposedly absorb moonlight. Flame pepper seeds said to have a connection to fire magic. Calm flowers with a scent that soothes the mind. Her stall always had odd things, even strange colored stones labeled, suspected magic or residue. But 2 silver coins a week wasn't enough. So I found a way to earn my own money. I made glow moss growing boxes, old tin cans with gravel and soil inside, sprinkled with moss bits, watered, and sealed. Poke a few holes in the lid each day, and after a week you'd have a glowing green nightlight that lasted 3 months. I sold them to neighborhood kids for 3 copper coins each. They loved them. In 3 months, I sold over 40 boxes. Combined with what my father gave me, I had 5 silver coins and 17 copper coins hidden in a secret compartment of my wooden box. My seeds were sorted into 3 groups: common, special, and unknown, each with careful notes. But all of that was just preparation. The real moment came during a blizzard in the winter of my 4th year. I was curled up in bed, not from the cold, but because something deep in my soul was shaking, like a heartbeat. Thump, thump, thump. The jade door in my mind was clearer than ever. The crack had grown from a hair's width to the width of a feather. For years for that much progress. I closed my eyes and sank inward. This time was different. The door was breathing. With every pulse, it opened and closed slightly, and each time, a wave of life poured out. It smelled like earth after spring rain, like shade under summer trees, like fruit splitting open when it's perfectly ripe. The numbers ticked up in my mind. 99.1%, 99.2%. I waited. At midnight, during the worst of the storm, one final beat shook my entire soul. The jade door opened wide, or at least, the crack widened enough for my mind to pass through. There was no blinding flash, just a gentle pull that drew my awareness inside. And I saw it. A patch of pure black soil, about 10 square meters. It was dark as night, but faintly glowing, full of life. Gray mist rolled around the edges, sealing off this tiny world. Above the soil floated a glowing sphere the size of a fist, giving off soft, warm light, just enough to fill the space. My mind drifted over the land, and then I felt it. Time. Tiny ripples flowed across the soil, moving incredibly fast. Without the sharp senses I'd trained in my past life, I never would have noticed them. But I did. I tested it. I imagined a seed dropping into the soil. It sprouted, grew, bloomed, bore fruit, withered, and returned to the earth, all in about 3 seconds. I imagined glow moss spreading from a spore to a full green carpet. 2 seconds. 365 times faster. 1 day outside, 1 year in here. Seeing it happen right before me was completely different from just knowing the number. Watching an entire life cycle rush by in seconds took my breath away. I spent a long time just floating over the land, taking it all in. Then I started examining everything carefully. The soil was real. Soft, rich, full of minerals. The light sphere was real too. Its glow carried a strange energy, similar to the magic in this world, but purer, more basic. The mist wall at the edges was solid. My mind couldn't pass through it. Beyond it was just emptiness, space that hadn't formed yet. But there was a problem. I couldn't bring anything inside. Not physical objects. My body was still lying in bed. But even seeds I imagined in my mind wouldn't stay. They'd go through their whole life cycle and then vanish, leaving nothing behind. I needed real seeds. I had to find a way to move them from the outside world into this space. But how? I pulled my awareness back to the Jade Gate and studied it. On one side was this inner world. On the other was reality. And connecting them was my soul. I looked at my own consciousness. A faint, see-through shape made of countless tiny points of light. That was the core of me. My spirit, my awareness, my memories, all gathered into one form. My soul was the bridge. Now I just had to figure out how to use it. I looked at my soul's outline and noticed something on my right hand. A faint green glow, barely visible. It was the energy from those 3 spiral-patterned seeds I'd kept under my mattress for 4 years. Every day, without really thinking about it, I'd been feeding them with my mind. Now that green light was the only bridge between my soul and the physical world. I focused on it and gave it a gentle pull. My real hand suddenly felt warm. I opened my eyes and sat up in bed. The blizzard was still howling outside. I opened my right palm, and there it was. One of the 3 spiral seeds. But there was one more step. I closed my eyes again and reached into the inner world. Using the green energy as a bridge, I focused everything I had on imagining the seed crossing over. The real seed didn't vanish from my hand, but inside the hidden realm, an identical seed appeared in midair and dropped into the dark soil. I held my breath and waited. 1 second, 2, 3, nothing. Then the soil bulged. A tiny green sprout broke through. It grew fast, branches, leaves, a thickening trunk. In 10 seconds, it was a foot tall with deep green spiral-patterned leaves. In 30 seconds, it reached my waist and started forming buds. After a minute, pale golden flowers bloomed with spiral patterns on every petal. 2 minutes in, the flowers died and left behind 3 small berries covered in spiral ridges. At 3 minutes, the berries turned green, then red, then purple, then almost black. At 4 minutes, the fruits dropped to the ground. The plant withered, shrank, and melted back into the soil as black compost. Seed to death, less than 5 minutes inside. I opened my eyes and checked the clock. Only about 1 minute had passed in the real world. The time ratio wasn't quite 365 to 1 though. More like 300 to 1. Something was off. I went back inside to investigate. Under the soil, I found tiny vein-like lines carrying a thick, milky liquid. It moved very slowly. When the plant's roots had touched one of those veins, its growth had sped up sharply. Energy. The land needed energy to keep the time flowing fast. Those veins were like fuel lines, and right now, the fuel was almost empty. I checked the Jade Gate for information. Here's what I learned. The realm was 10 square meters, fully repaired. Maximum time ratio, 365 to 1. But energy reserves were only at 0.7%. At full speed, it burned 0.1% per minute, meaning I'd get about 7 minutes before it shut down and went to sleep. Natural recovery was painfully slow, 0.0001% per day. 100 days to fully recharge if I didn't use it at all. So this wasn't some unlimited cheat. It was more like a rechargeable super incubator with a very short battery. But I smiled anyway. 7 minutes outside at full power meant about 42 hours inside. Almost 2 full days. That was enough time to grow entire harvests of glow. Moss, breed dozens of generations of flame peppers to find the spiciest one, or watch the spiral plant go through hundreds of life cycles to study how it changed. And the energy could be refilled. The gate listed several sources: earth essence, life energy, magic power, faith energy, and something called world origin. Earth essence sounded like mineral energy. Life energy was tied to living things. Magic power was this world's supernatural force. Faith energy seemed connected to religion. World origin was way beyond my reach. The easiest to get would be magic power. But how does a 4-year-old who hasn't even taken the magic test get magic power? I turned and looked out the window. The storm was dying down. Moonlight broke through the clouds, and in its glow, I saw faint silver specks drifting through the air. Lunar magic power. I stared at them for a long time, then closed my eyes and tried to catch them. Not with my body, since my young energy channels weren't developed yet. Forcing that would hurt me. Instead, I reached out from deep in my soul, through the open Jade Gate, and tried to pull the silver specks toward me. It was slow, very slow, but it was a start. Trying to catch that moonlight energy was like fishing with a single strand of hair. But after half an hour of focus, sweat dripping down my forehead, I finally got it. One tiny thread of silver energy, thinner than a hair, flowed through my soul, through the Jade Gate, and into the veins beneath the soil. Energy reserve, 0.7001%. An increase of 0.0001%. Almost nothing. But it was a breakthrough, going from 0 to 1. I fell back onto the bed, exhausted. But I was smiling. Because I had time. 365 times more time than anyone else. I opened my hand in the dark. In my palm sat a deep purple berry with spiral patterns. The fruit I'd brought out from the inner world. It was still warm and smelled like a mix of fruit and herbs. I didn't need it. I knew from my past life that unknown spiritual plants could be helpful or poisonous. I tucked the berry into my bedside drawer next to the other 2 spiral seeds. Then I lay back down and let my mind sink into the inner world one more time. I crouched over the dark soil and whispered, "Hello. From today, I'm your master, and you'll be my strongest foundation in this world." The glowing sphere flickered like it heard me. The next morning, I checked the energy again. It had gone up to 0.7003%, a tiny gain even while I slept. My body's natural life energy and the faint magic in the air were slowly feeding the realm on their own. I jumped out of bed and checked my drawer. The purple berry had gotten darker and smelled sweeter. I still wasn't going to eat it, not until I knew what it did. At breakfast, I asked my mother if Aunt Martha sold any books about plants. She said there might be an old copy of something called The Common Plants of Phoenix, but warned me it would be expensive and written for adults. "I can learn," I told her. She smiled and ruffled my hair. After eating, I grabbed my wooden box and headed to the market. Inside were all my savings, 5 silver coins, 17 copper coins, and my leather notebook with notes on 32 different plants. Aunt Martha's stall was quiet that morning. She sat in her wicker chair, sorting rusty gears. When I ran up, she smiled her toothless smile and offered me some new silverleaf mint seeds. But I had something else in mind. I opened my notebook to a page where I'd drawn the spiral-patterned plant from memory the night before. The drawing was rough. I was 4 years old, after all, but the details were clear. Dark green leaves with spiral patterns, pale golden flowers, deep purple berries. "Grandma Martha, have you ever seen this plant?" She put on her glasses and leaned close. Her face changed. "These leaves, these patterns," she looked up at me sharply. "Where did you see this?" I prepared my answer. "In a dream. There was black soil, and the plant grew really fast, bloomed, made fruit, and died." Her breathing got faster. She stared at me with her cloudy eyes in a way that made me uncomfortable. Then she caught herself and shook her head. "It's nothing, dear. Just reminded me of something old. I haven't seen this plant before. But if you're interested in rare plants, there's a shop on Old Oak Street, the 7th one. A grumpy old man named Grove runs it. People call him Old Grove. He collects all kinds of strange plants. He might know something." She leaned in closer. "But be careful, child. Old Grove isn't friendly, and the things he keeps are expensive and dangerous. Don't go without an adult." I nodded politely, but in my head, I was already memorizing every word she said. I asked Aunt Martha if she had any plant books with pictures. She dug around under her stall and pulled out a dusty old hardcover, Illustrated Guide to Common Magical Plants of the Phoenix Kingdom, 3rd edition. It was over 10 years old, but it had color illustrations. She wanted 30 copper coins for it. I didn't hesitate. I counted out every coin and placed them on the stall one by one. Holding that heavy book, my heart beat faster. Knowledge matters in every world. Instead of heading home, I took a detour to the public library, a 2-story brick building with a sign showing a gear crossed with a book. The librarian, a tall, skinny guy with glasses, looked surprised when a 4-year-old walked in carrying a book almost half his size. "This isn't a playground, kid. I want to borrow a book," I said. He laughed. "Can you even read?" I walked to the nearest table, stood on tiptoe, opened my plant book, and read the title page out loud. His smile disappeared. I asked where to find beginner books about magic energy and wizards. 10 minutes later, I was sitting in a corner with 2 books, Basic Theories of Magic Energy and A Beginner's Guide to the Wizard Profession. What I read opened up an entire new world. Magic energy is a fundamental force that fills everything in Etherland. It's not quite physical, not quite spiritual, something in between. People with special gifts can sense and use it to create supernatural effects. At age 7, every child takes a magic resonance test that measures 3 things: affinity, rated 1 to 10, adaptability, which element you're best at, and soul strength, your mental power. Those results decide if you can become a wizard and what kind. There are elemental wizards who control earth, water, fire, wind, light, or darkness. Rune wizards who draw and combine runes. Summoners who make contracts with magical creatures. And more specialized paths like alchemists and potion makers. The book also listed where magic energy comes from. It's naturally spread everywhere but weak. It's denser at ley line nodes. It can be mined from magic or magical creatures produce it, and special events like moonlight or starlight release it. My breath caught. Leyline nodes, magic, or moonlight. Those were all listed as energy sources for my inner world too. I didn't have a known element yet, but I had two advantages: my inner world and the energy sensitivity I trained in my past life. I closed my eyes and tried the breath of wind first. Inhale slowly. Imagine air flowing down the spine. Exhale gently. Nothing happened. I tried the breath of water, imagining myself as a calm lake, breathing like soft ripples. Still nothing. Then I tried the breath of fire. I pictured a small warm flame in my chest. Each breath was a gentle breeze helping it grow. Something changed. A faint warmth appeared in the center of my chest. It wasn't pure magic energy, more like life energy, maybe a trace of the vital energy I'd once cultivated in my old life. Guided by the breathing method, that warmth began moving slowly, from my chest to my lower belly and back. A small cycle. With each loop, it grew just a tiny bit stronger. Then something deep in my soul stirred, and a message appeared in my mind. Life energy conversion detected. Efficiency, 0.001%. Energy reserve, 0.7004%. An increase of 0.0001%. Not much, but it proved the method worked. Meditation could restore my inner world's energy. The book warned that children under 7 shouldn't do intense meditation because it could damage their growing bodies. But I only needed gentle cycles, nothing forced, nothing harsh. And here was the key. 1 hour of meditation in the real world equaled 15 days inside my inner world. Even with low efficiency, that added up fast. I closed the book and checked the clock. Still an hour before lunch. Enough time for a small experiment. As I left carrying my 2 books, the librarian called after me. "Hey, what's your name?" "Alan." "Alan Hawk, the Hawk family. Your father is Old Hawk, the maintenance engineer?" "Yes," he smiled. "No wonder. Your father used to come here a lot too. But he liked reading about steam cores and gear dynamics." After lunch, I locked my bedroom door and let my mind sink into the inner world. The black soil was the same as before. Where the spiral plant had grown, there was just a darker patch. Its remains melted back into the earth. I focused and dug a tiny hole with my thoughts. Then I took some glow moss spores I'd scraped from a culture box in the real world and guided them through the link between my soul and the inner world. They dropped into the hole. I covered them with soil. "Grow at full speed," I commanded. The veins under the soil lit up. The light sphere brightened. Green dots appeared on the surface and spread fast. 10 centimeters in 1 second. A thin carpet in 3 seconds. A faint glow in 10. And after a minute, the moss was bright enough to light up a corner of the whole land. I stopped the energy flow and did the math. 1 minute at full power cost about 0.01% of my energy. With 0.7% in reserve, I could run full speed for about 70 minutes total. But I wasn't going to burn through it all at once. Only 1 minute had passed in the real world. I confirmed 2 important things. First, I could control the time speed. When I wanted it faster, it adjusted. This run was about 50 times normal, not the full 365. Second, the faster the time, the more energy it used. At lunch, I casually asked my mother about the bauhinia tree in our backyard. She said it usually bloomed in mid-April, and it was only early March. Too soon. After eating, I slipped outside with a small shovel. Our backyard was tiny, about 10 square meters. In the corner stood an old bauhinia tree with a trunk as thick as a bowl. Its branches were bare except for a few tiny buds. I dug a shallow hole near the roots and sprinkled in some of the decomposed soil from the spiral plant, the humus it left behind after dying in the inner world. I covered it up and stepped back. What would soil from the inner world do to a real plant? I had no idea, but I wanted to find out. That night, I ran my second experiment. I planted a flame pepper seed inside the inner world, set the speed to 10 times, and watched. At that speed, energy drained at about 0.0003% per minute, slow enough to be sustainable. Over 1 real-world hour, about 15 days passed inside. The pepper seed sprouted, grew to half a meter, bloomed bright red flowers, and produced 3 shiny peppers that turned from green to fiery red. A full life cycle in one sitting. I pulled my mind back to reality and walked to the window. Then I froze. The bauhinia tree, the one that was nothing but bare branches with a few tiny buds that morning, was now covered in plump pink-purple flower buds. densely packed, swaying in the cold March wind, looking like they could burst open any second. One night, from barely anything to full buds, a change that normally takes a month, and all I'd done was sprinkle a small handful of inner-world soil near its roots. I leaned against the window and breathed in the cold air, but it couldn't cool the fire in my chest. A secret world with time flowing 365 times faster. Soil that could supercharge plant growth. And me, someone with memories from another life, planning since age 4. I didn't know exactly where all this would lead, but I knew one thing. When that tree bloomed in full defiance of the season, people would notice. And they did. At dawn, shouting woke me up. "Oh my God, Evelyn, come look." It was Mrs. Miller next door. I ran barefoot to the window. The bauhinia tree was drowning in pink-purple blossoms. Every branch was packed with flowers, layered thick, sparkling with morning dew. The sweet smell was so strong it was almost dizzying. My mother rushed outside in her coat and just stood there, staring. My father came out too, still holding a wrench. He looked up at the tree with a deep frown. "It's March," he said quietly. "The bauhinia shouldn't bloom until mid-April. I know, but look how beautiful it is." My mother's voice trembled as she stared at the tree. Neighbors started gathering in our backyard, pointing and whispering. In a world with magic, out-of-season blooming isn't impossible. Powerful nature wizards can do it. But for an ordinary maintenance worker's backyard, that was strange. Breakfast was dead quiet. My mother was so nervous, she almost spilled her milk twice. My father stared at his plate like it held a blueprint. Then he looked straight at me. "Alan, did you do anything to that tree yesterday?" I tilted my head the way a 4-year-old would. "I played in the backyard and dug in the dirt. Grandma Martha said plants like loose soil, so I loosened it around the roots." Half true. I did dig. I just left out the part about what I buried. My father studied my face for a few seconds, then nodded. "Don't touch the backyard plants without asking. Some plants are sensitive. I could tell my parents were suspicious, but they weren't going to push. Not yet." After breakfast, my mother surprised me. "Instead of letting me visit Aunt Martha," she said, "I'm taking you somewhere. To see someone who can teach you about plants." We walked past the 6th gear district into the 7th, closer to the city center. Buildings got taller. Steam pipes crowded the walls. Huge chimneys rose everywhere. We stopped in front of a 3-story stone building covered in metal vines with brass leaves. The sign read, "Grove Alchemy Supplies." Below it, in small text, also offering potion advice and rare plant buying. My heart jumped. Grove. The grumpy old man Aunt Martha had warned me about. My mother pushed open the heavy oak door. A copper bell jingled. Inside, the air smelled of herbs, chemicals, and something sweet and strange. Shelves reached the ceiling, filled with jars of colored liquids, dried plants, glowing crystals, and things I couldn't even name. Behind the counter, an old man in a greasy leather apron was grinding red powder. Without looking up, he said in a rough voice, "Buy what you need. Prices on the shelves. No bargaining, no returns, no stupid questions. Mr. Grove," my mother said carefully. He looked up. He was at least 70, with deep wrinkles and sharp eagle-like eyes buried in their sockets. He came around the counter, limping slightly, like his left leg had been hurt, and bent down to look right into my eyes. Soul wavelength 7.2, magical energy affinity unknown, mental strength. He squinted. Interesting. My stomach tightened. Could this old man actually read my soul? He straightened up before I could say anything. "No need to explain. Your husband came to see me last night about the bauhinia tree. He mentioned your son has a talent for plants." My mother relaxed a little and started telling him about my seed collecting, my notes, even how I'd used glow moss to help the family. "Yes, I heard about that." Grove cut her off. He lit a hand-rolled cigarette, and the smoke twisted into the shape of a butterfly before fading. The City Hall people thought glow moss lighting was clever, but that stuff spreads too fast. Give it 3 months and it'll clog every sewer. I felt a knot in my gut. I hadn't thought of that. "But that's their problem," he said. "You brought the boy here to see if I can spot something in him." My mother nodded. "His father thought maybe you could give him some guidance." Grove didn't answer right away. He walked to a shelf and took down a glass jar with a few shriveled, almost black berries inside. He held it in front of me. "Do you know what these are?" I looked closely. Tiny bumps on the surface. Dark red, nearly black. 3 withered sepals at the stem. "Bloodthorn berries," I said. They grow in areas polluted with magic energy. The fruit has faint blood magic and is used in low-level healing potions. But fresh ones are toxic. They have to be dried for at least 3 months before use. Grove raised an eyebrow. I pulled out my plant book from my cloth bag. Page 87. He took the book, flipped to that page, and compared. The illustration matched. My description was almost word for word. You can read? And memorize all this. I've read it 3 times, I said. 3 times. He closed the book and looked at me hard. How old are you? 4 years old, I said. Grove repeated it, and then laughed. A dry, creaky sound like a wind-up toy struggling to move. Old Hawk's son, 4 years old, can read, memorize a plant guide, and made the bauhinia bloom in March. Interesting. He walked behind the counter and pulled out a wooden box full of glass test tubes filled with colored powders and liquids. He set a tube of blue powder, a tube of distilled water, and a tiny brass cauldron in front of me. This is dried blue vein grass powder. This is distilled water. Together they make the simplest potion, a blue vein grass infusion. Mild pain relief and calming. Pour, add water, heat until it barely boils, stir 30 times, let it cool. Show me. My mother started to speak, but he raised his hand to silence her. I looked at the tools, and I made a choice. I decided to fail on purpose. I let my hand, accidentally, shake so that some powder spilled on the table. I poured the water clumsily. When I stirred, I went uneven, sometimes fast, sometimes slow, and knocked the glass rod against the cauldron wall a few times. At 25 stirs, white foam appeared on the surface. That wasn't right. Stop, Grove shouted. I flinched and dropped the rod. The liquid had turned dark blue with ugly white bubbles rising through it. A classic beginner failure. Overheated, poorly stirred. Grove sniffed the cauldron and frowned. Too many impurities, less than 30% active ingredients, and slightly toxic. He looked at me. Is this what you wanted to show me? My mother's face went pale. But Grove told her to be quiet. I stared at my shoes. Sorry. I was nervous. Nervous? His laugh was cold. A child who memorizes an entire plant guide at 4 gets nervous making the simplest potion. He walked over and bent down until his sharp eyes were level with mine. You're pretending, kid. My heart skipped. Your memory is excellent. Your observation is sharp. But your hands just now move like a 3-year-old who's never touched a test tube. That doesn't match. He pulled a monocle from his pocket, deep purple crystal with fine silver threads around the edges, and put it on. Then he looked at me again. This time, I felt something cold sweep over me. Not a normal stare. Some kind of scan. Soul wavelength 7.2, standard. Mental energy. He frowned. Wait. What is this? His gaze locked onto the center of my chest, the exact spot where I'd felt warmth during meditation. Have you started meditating? For the first time, he sounded truly surprised. I found a method in a library book and tried it. I whispered. This time I wasn't faking. His detection ability genuinely shocked me. Fire breathing technique, the basic beginner method. But you're 4. Your energy channels aren't fully formed. Forcing meditation should have caused damage. He took off the monocle, his expression complicated. But it didn't. The energy inside you is faint, but it's flowing smoothly. He stared at me for a long time and let out a slow breath. Hawk was right. You really are special. He went back behind the counter, dug through a deep drawer, and tossed an old leather notebook in front of me. This is from when I was young and learning to make potions. 12 basic formulas: grinding, extracting, mixing, heating, cooling, filtering, all with detailed steps and common mistakes. My eyes lit up. But, he added, I don't take students. Especially not 4-year-olds. Potion making isn't a game. One mistake can poison you, blind you, or kill you. Then why give me the notebook? Because I can tell that even if I didn't, you'd figure it out yourself. He lit another cigarette. Better you have proper guidance than stumble around and get hurt. But the rule is, theory only. No real practice until you're 7, and only with an adult wizard watching. Then he turned to my mother. And how are you planning to explain the bauhinia blooming early? My mother bit her lip. We don't know yet. Let's stick to one story. Say you used the growth powder I sold you, a cheap alchemical product. It's unstable, but sometimes helps flowers bloom, Grove said, taking a small labeled package from the shelf and handing it to Evelyn. Actually, it's just lime powder with some fragrance, nothing special. But it's enough to fool ordinary people. Thank you, Mr. Grove. No need to thank me. That will be 5 silver coins. The growth powder costs 5 copper coins. Grove was straightforward. Evelyn quickly paid. 10 silver coins was a lot for the Hawk family, but she paid without hesitation. As they left Grove's shop, Alan looked back. The old man had returned to his counter, continuing to grind red powder as if nothing had happened. But the leather notebook in Alan's arms felt heavy, reminding him that everything was real. On the way home, Evelyn stayed silent. When they were almost there, she spoke softly. Alan, yes? Did you do it on purpose to make it fail earlier? Alan didn't answer immediately. He watched the steam-powered cars passing by, the workers in work clothes covered in soot, and the distant factory lights that never went out. Mom, he finally said, if Mr. Grove thinks I'm talented enough to be his student, what would happen? Evelyn was stunned. He would teach me a lot, but he would also watch me closely, test me, and expect a lot, Alan continued softly. And I don't want others to know some things, like the hidden world, like memories from his past life, like those 3 spiral seed symbols. Evelyn stopped and crouched down, looking seriously into her son's eyes. Alan, I don't know what's happening to you. Maybe it's that gift your grandfather mentioned, or something else. But I want you to remember one thing. No matter what you do or who you become, you are my child. Your father and I will protect you with everything we have. Her eyes shimmered with tears, but her smile was warm. Alan reached out his small hand and wiped away a tear from his mother's eye. I understand, Mom. So, Evelyn held his hand. If you have any secrets you don't want to share, keep them safe. But if one day you need help, be sure to tell Dad and me, okay? Okay. At that moment, Alan suddenly realized that in this strange world, he possessed something more precious than magical knowledge, potion skills, or memories from his past life. A family. A family willing to accept him, protect him, and love him even if they don't know everything about him. That night, Alan locked his door and opened Grove's notebook. The first page had neat handwriting. The way of potion making starts with a strong foundation. If the foundation is weak, everything will shake. Remember, you're not just mixing liquids. You're guiding magical energy, balancing the potion's properties, and creating miracles. Apprentice Grove, autumn year 945 of the steam calendar. Alan turned the pages one by one. Most of the 12 basic potions listed in the notes he had seen in illustrations before, but this was the first time he saw complete recipes and procedures. Calmness Potion, a basic calming potion used to ease anxiety and help sleep. Ingredients: 3 grams of tranquil flower petals, 2 grams of silver thread grass leaves, 50 milliliters of distilled water. Hemostatic Ointment, a basic remedy for external injuries that speeds up small wound healing. Ingredients: 5 grams of marigold powder, 10 milliliters of spider silk grass juice, 20 grams of Vaseline base. Basic Healing Potion, treats minor internal injuries and restores stamina. Ingredients: 2 grams of blood thorn fruit powder, 5 milliliters of moonlight moss extract, 30 milliliters of pure water, 5 milliliters of honey, for flavor and stabilizing. Each potion had detailed steps, precautions, and even hand-drawn diagrams by Grove, grinding strength, heating temperature curves, stirring directions, and speeds. This was far from an ordinary beginner's notebook. It was almost a textbook for potion apprentices. Alan was captivated. Until late at night, he closed the notebook, rubbed his sore eyes, and then did one thing. His consciousness sank into the land of his inner world. Black land, floating orbs of light. Energy reserve, 0.7011%. An increase of 0.0007% from yesterday. Only 0.0002% is natural recovery, and 0.0005% comes from his daytime meditation. It's rare, but accumulation is hope. Alan's mind focused on the fire pepper plant he planted yesterday. The 3 bright red peppers still hung on the branch, looking fresh and tempting. He picked one. In the real world, a warm fire pepper appeared in his palm out of nowhere. He walked to the window and examined it carefully under the moonlight. The pepper's surface was smooth, evenly colored, and emitted a spicy aroma. He tore off a small piece of the flesh and saw the seeds inside were full and light yellow. Then, he did something that would surely get him scolded if Grove knew. He put the small piece of flesh into his mouth. Suddenly, a burning sensation exploded on his tongue. It wasn't ordinary spiciness, but a kind of heat, like a small flame burning in his mouth, spreading down his throat, and finally turning into a warm flow in his stomach. That warm flow didn't fade but moved slowly inside his body, eventually merging into the true energy cycle in his chest. The cycle sped up a little, a tiny bit, but Alan felt it. The fire pepper, cultivated in the cave heaven with 50 times the normal flow rate, was not only much spicier, but also contained a faint energy that could help with fire-breathing meditation. It's a magical ingredient. This is high-quality magical ingredient. Alan opened his eyes, a bright excitement shining in them. Grove's notes listed 12 basic potion formulas. He had the cave heaven, 365 times the flow rate of time, and black soil capable of growing high-quality materials. Now he needed two things. First, more seeds, especially rare magical plant seeds. Second, a safe place to make potions without being discovered. The first can be obtained through Aunt Martha, Old Grove, or other means. The second, Alan looked outside. In the night, the 6th Gear District, with its steam pipes like the city's blood vessels, pulsed endlessly. In this world, knowledge is power. Magic potions are power, and time and patience are the levers to move it all. He has a 365-fold lever. The rest is just a matter of time. Outside the window, the jacaranda flowers gently sway in the night breeze. The full tree blooms shimmer with a silvery purple glow under the moonlight, looking almost unreal. Groff's notes became the main focus of Alan's life for the next 3 months. He acted like a real scholar, sorting the 12 basic formulas in the notes into categories. For each potion, he made a study card that listed the ingredients, steps, key points, and common mistakes. He kept these cards in a hidden compartment of a wooden box and only took them out late at night after locking his door to study. At the same time, he started to expand his seed collection. From Aunt Martha, he bought several kinds of basic magical plant seeds mentioned in the notes. Moonlight moss, related to glow moss, but only grows by absorbing moonlight. Dried and ground into powder, it is used as a stabilizer in many calming medicines. Price: 2 silver coins per small bag of spores. Marigold, a common medicinal plant. Dried petals can be used to make a hemostatic ointment. However, Martha's marigold seeds are marked as 3-year-old stock, uncertain germination. Price: 1 silver coin per small bag. Spider silk grass, a vine-like plant with sticky sap like spider silk, used as an adhesive in hemostatic ointments. Its seeds are gray-white with a fine web-like pattern on the surface. Price: 3 silver coins for 5 seeds. Alan spent all his savings, 5 silver coins and 17 copper coins, to buy 3 small bags of seeds. But he didn't plant them immediately in the cave. Groff's notes emphasize from the start, handling potion ingredients begins with selecting and cultivating seeds. Impure seeds and unhealthy plants will never produce qualified potions. So Alan first conducted tests in the real world. He added 3 broken flower pots to his windowsill and planted moonlight moss, marigold, and spider silk grass. He recorded their growth daily, measuring leaf size, color changes, and, most importantly, detecting their faint magical energy fluctuations. At night, moonlight moss absorbed moonlight, causing its leaves to glow faintly silver. During the hottest noon sunlight, marigold petals slightly curled, and the magical energy in the center increased a little. As the spider silk grass vines grew, they secreted a sticky sap that quickly solidified in the air into fine, silk-like fibers. Alan carefully recorded all these observations. He faintly sensed that the growth pattern of the enchanted plants was closely related to the magical energy environment. This was similar to the spiritual herbs in his previous cultivation world, but the process seemed more regulated. After 3 months, Alan was 4.5 years old. The experimental plants on the windowsill had all reached maturity. The moonlight moss covered the entire flower pot, shining like a small silver carpet at night. The marigolds bloomed with 3 yellow flowers, their petals thick. Spider silk grass climbed all over the stems, with fine silk hanging from the vines. Alan collected small samples from each plant. A tiny handful of spores from the moonlight moss, a petal from the marigold, and a small piece of vine from the spider silk grass. Then, on a moonless night, he began his first real cultivation in the secret world. His consciousness sank in. Black soil, floating light sphere. Energy reserve, 0.7128%. 3 months of natural recovery and intermittent meditation increased the energy reserve by 0.0117%. Not much, but enough for a few small experiments. Alan first chose the moonlight moss. He guided his mind, causing a small handful of silvery spores to fall into the black soil. Grow 30 times the normal speed. Goal: complete 1 life cycle. Energy started to flow. The faint white veins deep in the soil lit up with a soft glow. Inside the secret world, the spores landed, sprouted, mycelium spread, forming moss colonies, maturing, producing new spores, withering, and blending back into the soil. The whole process, in Alan's perception, was like watching a documentary sped up hundreds of times. Life cycled rapidly, and the light sphere of the secret world seemed to simulate moonlight. When the moss matured, the spectrum of the light sphere shifted slightly toward a cool silver. Real time, 3 minutes. Secret world time, about a day and a half. When the energy supply stopped, a small patch of shimmering silver moss appeared before Alan. Unlike the moonlight moss cultivated in the real world, this moss from the secret world was more pure in color, with a faint blue halo in the silver white, and emitted stable, clear magical energy fluctuations. Alan collected a small handful. His consciousness returned to the real world, and in his palm was a moist, cool, silver-white moss. He found a clean small dish, spread out the moss, and left it to dry on the windowsill. Next was the marigold. The same process. The sample taken from reality, a petal, was brought into the secret world, planted, and grown at 30 times the speed. This time, something unexpected happened. When the marigold grew in the dark soil, Alan clearly felt that the plant suddenly stalled at a certain stage. It wasn't stopping growth, but its direction subtly changed. Its leaves became thicker, the petal colors shifted from bright yellow to orange yellow, and the magic energy gathering point in the flower's center split into 3. Could it be a mutation? Alan didn't interfere. He just observed. Eventually, the golden marigold completed its life cycle and produced a dozen seeds that were slightly larger and darker in color than usual. Interesting, Alan murmured. The cultivation of the spider silk grass went smoothly, but the mucus secreted by the vines was noticeably more abundant. When solidified, the fibers formed were tougher and finer. After preparing 3 batches of materials, he dried, ground, and stored them in small glass bottles. These bottles, originally used for candies, were bought with leftover pocket money from the grocery store. After cleaning, they were perfect for storing materials. The preparations took a week. During this week, Alan recited the steps for making calmness potion from Grove's notes hundreds of times. He even practiced dozens of times with flour and water, measuring, mixing, stirring, heating. Every step had to be precise, every movement steady. Magic potions are not like cooking. Vague concepts like a little or an appropriate amount don't apply. 3 grams is exactly 3 grams. 50 milliliters is exactly 50 milliliters. Heating to a gentle boil means the surface just begins to produce tiny bubbles evenly, and 30 circles of stirring must be just right. No more, no less, with the same direction maintained. Finally, on a Sunday afternoon, the opportunity arrived. Old Hawk received an urgent repair task. He needed to go to the textile factory in the west of the city to fix a burst steam core, and wouldn't return until evening. Evelyn was asked by neighbor Mrs. Miller to help with sewing and to bring her 1-year-old sister Emily along. Only Alan was at home. This was part of his plan. Alan locked the front door, went to his room, and locked that door too. Then he dragged out a wooden box from under his bed, his makeshift potion workstation, assembled secretly over the past 3 months. The workstation was simple, a flat wooden board with a few small supports fixed on top. On the supports, he placed a few items he had, stolen, from Grove's shop. Of course, he paid for them, hiding 5 copper coins wrapped in paper in the corner of the counter. A small brass crucible, about the size of a palm, a thin glass rod, a graduated glass measuring cylinder, a small alcohol lamp with a flame-rune copper plate, a set of small copper scales, accurate to 0.1 grams. Additionally, 3 small glass bottles, one with ground calming flower petal powder, another with silvergrass powder, and a bottle of distilled water, stolen from the kitchen, redistilled 3 times using Evelyn's distillation apparatus to ensure purity. All materials are prepared, tools are ready, and the operator is in position. Alan takes a deep breath, closes his eyes, and mentally reviews the process one last time. Step 1. Clean. All tools must be dust-free and oil-free. He carefully wipes the crucible, glass rod, and measuring cylinder with a clean, soft cloth. His movements are steady and skillful, not at all like a 4.5-year-old child. Step 2. Preheat. Light the alcohol lamp and heat the copper plate to a steady temperature. Click. Sparks fly from the flint, igniting the wick. The flame rune glows faintly red, and the copper surface quickly heats up to a certain range, about 80 to 90 degrees Celsius, the gentle heat mentioned in Grove's notes. Step 3. Weigh. 3.0 grams of calming flower petal powder, with an error margin no more than 0.1 grams. The pointer on the small copper scale wobbles slightly, finally stopping at 3.0 grams. Alan gently scoops the powder into the crucible with a bone spatula. Step 4. Add solvent. 50.0 milliliters of distilled water. The liquid level in the measuring cylinder stops exactly at the 50 milliliter mark. The water flows slowly into the crucible, mixing with the powder to form a pale pink, cloudy liquid. Step 5. Heat. Place the crucible on the copper plate and slowly bring to a gentle boil. The crucible is placed on the copper plate. Alan holds his breath, eyes fixed on the liquid surface. 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds. Bubbles begin to form. Not vigorous boiling, but steady, tiny bubbles rising from the bottom and bursting at the surface. A gentle simmer. Step 6. Stir. Clockwise, at a steady pace, 30 turns. The glass rod is inserted into the liquid. Alan's hand is as steady as a rock. 1 turn, 2 turns, 3 turns. He counts silently, watching the change in the liquid. The pale pink deepens, the cloudiness gradually diminishes, and the liquid turns into a clear pink. After 15 turns, the liquid was already very clear. At 20 turns, the color stabilized in a soft cherry pink. By 25 turns, a very fine pearl-like shine appeared on the surface of the liquid. At 28, 29, and 30 turns, stirring stopped. The glass rod was carefully lifted without spilling a drop. Step 7. Remove from heat and let cool naturally. Alan used tongs to pick up the crucible and placed it on a nearby stone slab. The hot bottom of the crucible touched the stone, making a faint hissing sound. Next, he waited. The potion needed to cool down to room temperature naturally. During this time, the magic energy would gradually stabilize, and the potion's properties would be fully balanced. Grove's note said, cooling takes about 10 minutes. A successful calming potion will turn into a clear, light pink after cooling, with no sediment or floating particles. The surface will have a faint rainbow shimmer, and the scent will be sweet and fresh, like a garden after rain. Alan stared at the crucible. The liquid slowly stopped bubbling, and its color continued to fade. It changed from cherry pink to light pink, then almost transparent with a hint of pink. The pearl-like shine on the surface didn't disappear. It became even more delicate, as if the liquid itself was glowing. After 8 minutes, the liquid was completely clear. At 10 minutes, Alan leaned in, gently fanning the air and smelling the aroma. It was sweet and calming, with a peaceful floral scent, purer and softer than usual, without the grassy or bitter notes often found in plant ingredients. He took a clean glass rod, dipped it into the liquid, and lifted it out. The liquid flowed down the rod smoothly, with a consistent texture and moderate thickness. It formed a perfect droplet at the tip of the rod, hanging there without falling. Did it succeed? Alan's heart raced, but he didn't jump to conclusions. He took out a prepared, clean glass test tube from under the workbench and carefully transferred the liquid from the crucible into it using a small funnel. 50 milliliters of liquid filled exactly 1 standard potion test tube. The liquid swayed inside the glass tube, reflecting a faint rainbow in the sunlight coming through the window. Alan held the test tube up and examined it carefully. It was clear, transparent, and free of impurities. Color, a perfect light pink. Smell, just right. Appearance, flawless. But the true test of the potion was its effect. He needed to test it. The method of testing. Grove's notes didn't specify. It was usually assumed that a potion apprentice would have a mentor nearby for guidance or special instruments for testing. But Alan had neither a mentor nor any instruments. He only had himself, along with his trust in potion theory and confidence in the quality of the materials from his secret realm. After hesitating for about 3 minutes, Alan made his decision. He opened the cork of the test tube and used a dropper to take about 1/10 of a milliliter, roughly 5 drops. Then he dripped it into a glass of clear water, diluting it about 100 times. If this is a successful calming potion, even when highly diluted, it should still have a mild soothing effect. If it's a failed or toxic mixture, this amount shouldn't be dangerous, he told himself. Then he lifted the glass and took a small sip. The water carried a faint sweetness and a light floral scent as it slid down his throat. At first, he felt nothing. But about 30 seconds later, a gentle warmth, like the soft sunlight of spring, spread from his stomach through his body. It wasn't heat, but a sense of relaxation. The slight tension in his muscles faded, his breathing deepened naturally, his heartbeat slowed, and his thoughts became calm and clear. It felt as if he had just awakened naturally from a deep, dreamless sleep. Alan closed his eyes, feeling this state. He wasn't sleepy or dazed, just deeply relaxed. He could even sense that the flow of energy in his chest had become a little faster in this calm state. Very slightly, but definitely. It really worked. He opened his eyes and looked at the test tube in his hand, the pink liquid shimmering with rainbow light under the sun. A feeling hard to describe rose in his chest. It wasn't joy or excitement, but something deeper, almost a sense of awe. For the first time in the 4.5 years since he came to this world, he had created something extraordinary entirely through his own knowledge, preparation, and effort, not by relying on the secret realm's acceleration, nor by using tricks from his past life, but by truly understanding this world's rules and using them to create value. Potioncraft. This was the power of potioncraft. Alan carefully sealed the test tube, attached a label, and wrote, "Calming potion, beginner, no. 1, along with today's date." Then, he sat at the workbench and began writing the experiment record. First potion brewing experiment date. Steam calendar year 982, June 15th, 2:17 p.m. to 2:42 p.m. Potion. Calmness elixir. Basic calming type. Materials. Cultivated from the hidden realm. Calm flower, silver thread grass. Operator. Alan Hawk process record. Followed standard procedure, no abnormalities. Heating for 2 minutes and 15 seconds. Stirring 30 times. Cooling for 10 minutes. Observation. Clear, transparent, light pink, no sediment. Noticeable rainbow shine, standard smell. Effect test. Took diluted solution, 1:100. Confirmed significant calming and relaxing effects, no side effects. Lasted about an hour. Conclusion. Successful brewing. Material quality, from the hidden realm, may be better than usual, and the finished product quality is suspected to be above standard level. After finishing the record, Alan looked at the potion, and his mind started calculating quickly. The material cost for a standard calmness elixir, at market price, calm flower petals, 2 silver coins per gram, 3 grams needed, total 6 silver coins. Silver thread grass leaves, 1.5 silver coins per gram, 2 grams needed, total 3 silver coins. Distilled water and other supplies, about 0.5 silver coins. Total cost, about 9.5 silver coins. And the market selling price of the finished calmness elixir. Alan remembered the prices he saw at Grove's shop. The cheapest apprentice-made calmness elixir, a small tube, 10 milliliters, costs 5 silver coins. Standard quality, 20 milliliters, sells for 15 silver coins. High quality, 30 milliliters, can go for 30 silver coins or more. His tube is 50 milliliters. If valued at standard quality, its worth would be about 37.5 silver coins. Cost 9.5, selling price 37.5. Profit margin nearly 300%. And this is without considering the advantages of the hidden realm. If we include the realm's time acceleration, improved material quality, and batch cultivation. Alan took a deep breath, forcing himself to stay calm. He couldn't rush. He is only 4.5 years old now. A 4.5-year-old trying to sell magic potions is like holding a sign that says, "I have a problem." He needs time, needs to disguise himself, and needs proper channels. Moreover, brewing magic potions also involves risks. Today's success does not guarantee success every time. Grove's notes clearly state that even experienced potion makers have only a 70 to 80% success rate when brewing basic potions. For more complex potions, the success rate is even lower. First, strengthen the basics, Alan whispered. I need to successfully brew each of the 12 basic potions at least 3 times before moving on. He tidied up his workbench, cleaned all tools, and put everything back in place. The calming potion was hidden in the deepest compartment of the wooden box, alongside 3 spiral-patterned seeds. Then, Alan sat on his bed, closed his eyes, and sank into his inner world. He was about to do a second task. Energy reserve, 0.7101%. The recent experiment used 0.0027% of his energy, mainly for cultivating materials. Alan's consciousness floated above the dark soil. He visualized this small world and formed a plan in his mind. Currently, his inner world has 10 square meters of dark soil, 1 light sphere, and a time flow speed of 365 times, the theoretical maximum. His energy reserve is limited. To make the best use of it, he couldn't plant randomly. He needed a plan. Divide into zones. Using his mind, Alan marked 4 areas on the dark soil. Zone 1. Potion Material Cultivation Area, 4 square meters, dedicated to growing the 12 basic potion ingredients mentioned in his notes. Each plant's main stock is kept and harvested regularly to create a sustainable supply. Zone 2. Experiment and Mutation Observation Area, 2 square meters, used for planting plants that might mutate, like the marigold with 3 magic energy points. Observing, recording, and selecting valuable mutation directions. Zone 3. Food and Economic Crop Area, 2 square meters, growing fast-maturing crops like wheat and potatoes and sellable crops like high-quality vegetables and spices. These can improve his life or be sold through proper channels. Zone 4. Reserved Area, 2 square meters, not used for now, for storing special materials or planting more valuable plants in the future. After planning, Alan began to act. First, in Zone 1, he brought in samples of 5 potion ingredients he already had: comflowers, silver-line grass, marigolds, spider silk grass, and moonlight moss, and planted them in the designated spots. Grow at 20 times the flow rate to complete a full life cycle and preserve the mother plant. Energy flows, and the milky veins in the black soil light up. Inside the cave, 5 types of plants begin to grow, mature, and reproduce at a visible speed. Alan carefully observes every detail. He notices that different plants adapt differently to the cave environment. The comheart flower and silver-line grass grow the best, with almost no mutations. The marigold appears again, with multiple energy gathering points. The spider silk grass vines become thinner and stronger. In the silver glow of the moonlight moss, the blue shadows become more obvious. It seems the cave environment not only speeds up growth, but may also cause beneficial mutations, Alan notes. This could be due to the special energy in the black soil or the perfect growth environment simulated by the light sphere. Next is Zone 2. He plants the seeds from the mutated marigold, as well as a few other seeds bought from Aunt Martha, which are marked as doubtful germination rate. Grow at 15 times the flow rate and observe mutation trends. This uses less energy, but requires more careful observation. In Zone 3, Alan plants wheat and potatoes, borrowed from the kitchen. The wheat seeds are stored from last year's harvest, and the potatoes are sprouted tubers. Grow at 10 times the flow rate, aiming for a quick harvest this season. Finally, Zone 4 is temporarily empty. After completing the plan, about 20 minutes have passed in real time. In the cave, the medicinal material in Zone 1 has gone through 2 full life cycles. The mother plant is healthy, with new seedlings growing around it. The mutated plants in Zone 2 grow differently. One marigold has 4 petals instead of 3. The wheat in Zone 3 has headed, and the potato vines cover the support structures. Energy reserves have decreased from 0.7101% to 0.7053%, a consumption of 0.0048%. If I maintain this planting scale and run 2 rounds of such rapid cultivation daily, the energy consumption will be about 0.01%, Alan calculates. With the current reserve of 0.7%, it can last about 70 days. Natural recovery is about 0.0001% per day, plus meditation can restore about 0.0003% daily. Income and expenditure are barely balanced, with a slight surplus. But this depends on not increasing the acceleration rate or expanding the planting scale. More sources of energy are still needed, Alan concluded. He withdrew from the secret realm and opened his eyes in the real world. Outside the window, it was almost evening. The distant factory whistle sounded, marking the end of the day's shift and the start of the night shift. Downstairs, there were sounds of opening doors and talking. Evelyn had returned with her sister. "Alan, are you upstairs?" His mother's voice came from the staircase. "Yes, I'll come down right away." Alan took one last look at the calming potion hidden in the secret compartment. The light pink liquid shimmered faintly in the dusk. Then he closed the compartment, locked the wooden box, and left the room. At dinner, Evelyn noticed that her son seemed especially happy. "Did you stay home alone today? What did you do?" she asked casually. "Read books and, Alan thought for a moment, deciding to share a little. "I practiced potion making using flour and water, following Mr. Grove's notes." Practicing? Evelyn was a bit surprised. "Didn't Mr. Grove say you shouldn't do real experiments? It's just with flour and water, not real ingredients," Alan explained. Like chefs practicing knife skills with radishes, Old Hawk looked up from his plate and glanced at his son. "Made progress, yes. I think. I understand better the action of stirring 30 times, Alan said seriously. "It's not just stirring randomly, but keeping a steady force, speed, and direction. Like the piston in a steam engine. Each movement has to be precise." Old Hawk nodded, a hint of approval in his eyes. "Any craft is the same. I work on steam cores, and even tightening screws requires care. Loosen too much, and it leaks. Tighten too much, and it slips. It looks simple, but doing it perfectly every time takes thousands of practice runs." "I understand, Dad." After dinner, Alan volunteered to wash the dishes. Evelyn was hanging clothes nearby when she suddenly said, "By the way, Alan, I have something to tell you. Next month, on your 5th birthday, your dad and I have talked. We want to take you to the Temple of Knowledge." Alan's hand paused. The Temple of Knowledge is an institution established by the Eye of Knowledge Church in every city. It's responsible for education, testing, and, most importantly, the resonance test for magical energy when children turn 7. Go there. For what? To take a preliminary test. Evelyn dried her hands, walked over, and crouched in front of Alan. "It's not the official magic test. That can only be done at 7. This one is more like a talent assessment. The church offers it. It's expensive, but it helps parents learn early where their child's talents might lie, whether in mechanics, alchemy, runes, or other fields." Her voice softened. "Your father and I have thought about this for a long time. You're a very special child, and we don't know how to guide you. Maybe the priest can give us some advice." Alan was silent for a few seconds, then asked, "How much does it cost?" 5 gold coins, Evelyn said. "But we can afford it now." 5 gold coins, about 500 silver coins, the income of an ordinary worker for a whole year. "What if the result isn't good?" Alan asked. "That doesn't matter." Evelyn smiled and gently ruffled his hair. "The test is just to help us understand you better, not to pressure you. No matter what the result is, you'll always be our child." Alan nodded, but his mind was already racing. What exactly could the church's test detect? Soul wavelength. Grove had already checked that, 7.2. Perfectly normal. Magic affinity? He hadn't started training yet, so it might be very low or even 0. Mental strength? That could be tricky. With 2 lifetimes of memories, his mind was likely far stronger than other children's. But could he hide it? And most importantly, the inner realm. Could the church's methods discover the jade gate deep within his soul? The unknown always carried risk. But Alan also knew that in this world, avoiding the church completely was impossible. The Church of the Eye of Knowledge influenced every part of society, from birth ceremonies to education, from job certification to marriage contracts. Instead of avoiding it, it was better to face it, to learn about them within a safe range, whether they turned out to be allies, overseers, or enemies. "All right," Alan finally said. "I'll go." That night, Alan stayed awake for a long time. He sat by the window, gazing at the night sky where 3 moons of different colors hung above, The world of Etherland had 3 satellites, known as the Silver Moon, the Blue Moon, and the Blood Moon. Tonight, the Silver Moon shone its brightest, and within its light, the silver particles of lunar energy were clearly denser than usual. Alan closed his eyes, trying to sense those glowing points with his mind. This time, he didn't use the breath of fire technique. Instead, he tried a method of his own creation, using the flow of energy in his chest as a pump and his consciousness as a net to draw and guide the power within the moonlight. At first, it was difficult. The silver particles were like playful drops of mercury, always slipping through the gaps in his mental net. But slowly, Alan found the rhythm. It wasn't about grabbing, but about guiding. He imagined himself as a magnet, and the moonlight's energy as iron filings. A magnet doesn't need to chase the filings. It simply exists, and they are naturally drawn to it. The energy in his chest suddenly quickened. A stream of silver power, clearer and stronger than ever before, followed his consciousness into his body, joined the inner flow, and then half of it was absorbed by the Jade Gate. Energy source detected, lunar energy, pure, absorbing. Conversion efficiency, 0.5%, current energy reserve, 0.7058%, an increase of 0.0005% in one attempt. Though the total amount was still small, the efficiency had improved 5-fold. Alan opened his eyes, excitement shining within them. It worked. Moonlight was an efficient source of energy for his inner world. If one day he could directly connect to a ley line node, a magic or vein, or even, Alan shook his head, pushing away those distant thoughts. Step by step. For now, he had a successful calming potion, a planned inner-world farm, Grove's notes, and the support of his family. And in 1 month, a church test that could change everything. He needed to prepare. In this month, he would improve himself as much as possible, while also studying how to show a reasonable level of talent during the test. He had to be good enough to earn attention and resources, but not so exceptional that he attracted danger. That balance had to be carefully maintained. Alan lay back on his bed and closed his eyes. In the depths of his mind, the Jade Gate floated quietly. Beyond it, within his inner world, plants were growing, spreading, and renewing themselves at 20 times the speed of the outside world. In the real world, the night is deepening. A 4.5-year-old child begins his first real plan in a city where steam and magic energy intertwine. What will the future hold? He doesn't know. Over the next month, Alan's life settled into a steady routine. Every morning, before his family wakes up, he spends an hour meditating with the Moonlight Guidance Method. As he practices more, he absorbs moonlight magic more efficiently, gradually increasing from 0.5% to 0.8%, then 1.2%, and by the end of the month, about 1.5%. Each meditation restores about 0.001% of his hidden energy, plus the natural life energy his body emits, about 0.0001% per day. His energy reserves grow slowly and steadily, from 0.7058% to 0.7223%. During the day, besides helping his mother with chores, he spends most of his time studying potion theory. He repeatedly reads Grove's notes, memorizing the formulas and key points of 12 basic potions. He even begins to try designing more complex formulas, like combining steps from hemostatic ointments and calming potions to create a compound potion with pain relief, calming, and stopping bleeding effects, though only on paper. In the afternoon, he visits Aunt Martha's grocery stall. Using pocket money earned from selling glow moss cultivation boxes, he continues to expand his seed collection. Aunt Martha seems to notice something and starts giving him some special items, a few purple tinted oat seeds, a bag of rust-smelling dirt, and even a small dried claw-like piece that looks like an animal's paw. Are these useful? Alan asks, holding the dried claw. Who knows? Aunt Martha shrugs. They were collected from the edge of the ashen forest by an old hunter. If you want, you can have them for 3 copper coins. Alan pays. He's not sure if these items are useful, but the name, Ashen Forest, makes him cautious. It's a forbidden area west of Silver Glow City, rumored to be filled with magical creatures that ordinary people dare not enter. At night, it's time for Hidden Realm work. All 4 zones are functioning well. The potion ingredients in Area 1 have gone through more than 20 life cycles. Alan kept detailed records of their growth and selected the healthiest, most stable mother plants for special cultivation. In Area 2, initial results of mutation observation are showing. One of the four-petaled marigolds has produced offspring, with 1/3 inheriting the four-petaled trait, and their magical energy content is about 15% higher than normal marigolds. Wheat and potatoes in Area 3 have been harvested 3 times, yielding 3.5 times more than similar land elsewhere, with fuller grains and larger potatoes. Alan secretly mixed these super yield grains into his home storage. Evelyn was surprised when she found out. Why are the potatoes so good this year? Old Hawk thought it was because of new fertilizer, which wasn't wrong, as the soil in the hidden land is much more fertile than usual. Everything was going according to plan, until 3 days before Alan's 5th birthday, an accident happened. That afternoon, Alan went as usual to Aunt Martha's stall. As he reached the street corner, he saw a crowd gathered, and distant arguing voices could be heard. "Dad, I told you, I won't take that. Who knows which grave you dug it from?" Aunt Martha's voice was sharp and angry. "Grave? Damn it. I got this from deep inside the sunken mine. I almost lost my life," a rough male voice shouted. Alan pushed through the crowd and saw Aunt Martha confronting a middle-aged man with a full beard, dirty and disheveled. The man wore tattered leather armor, a rusty short knife at his waist, and carried a bulging bag on his back, looking like a down-and-out adventurer or miner. On the stall, there was a dirty cloth spread out, with some random items, a few dull-colored rocks, dried plant roots, a chipped clay pot, and a small bundle of withered vines. The vines were about arm length, grayish-brown all over, with cracked patterns on the surface, looking lifeless, as if dead for decades. But Alan's gaze was immediately drawn to them, because in his perception, those withered vines were breathing, not literal breathing, but a faint, intermittent magical energy fluctuation, like a dying heartbeat, pulsing very weakly every 10 seconds or so, almost undetectable without careful sensing. "Sunken mine? You dare go to such a cursed place?" Aunt Martha sneered. "Who doesn't know that place collapsed 50 years ago? It's full of toxic gas and monsters below. That pile of junk you have, I think you picked it up from the trash heap. You." The man's face turned red with anger. He grabbed a bundle of withered vines. "If you don't know its value, fine. I found this in the deepest part of the mine, in a sealed stone chamber. The walls are carved with ancient writing, and this thing was kept in a jade box." "Jade box? Do you understand? It must be a treasure." "A treasure?" Aunt Martha snorted. "Then why don't you take it to the Knowledge Temple for appraisal? Why are you here at my stall?" The man's confidence wavered. I've been there," the temple's priest said. "Said this thing has very weak magic energy. The appraisal costs 5 gold coins. It's not worth it." Laughter spread around. The 5 gold coins for appraisal suggested that the temple's priest thought this item was worth at most 10 gold coins. Appraisal fees are usually about 5% to 10% of the estimated value. 10 gold coins are a lot for adventurers, but not enough to be called a treasure. "Did you hear that?" Aunt Martha crossed her arms. "The priest at the temple said it's not worth much. I'll give you at most 20 silver coins for this pile of junk. Take it or leave it." 20 silver coins? Are you robbing me?" the man shouted. "Just the equipment to get out of the mine costs more than that. At least 1 gold coin. 30 silver coins, no more. 80, 35. They bargain like vendors at a market, finally settling on 50 silver coins, including the bundle of withered vines, some ore, dry roots, and that broken clay pot. The man cursed as he took the money and left. Aunt Martha disdainfully packed up the junk, ready to throw it into the trash behind her stall. "Grandma Martha," Alan suddenly spoke. "Huh? Little Alan." Aunt Martha looked at him, her expression softening. "What do you want to buy today?" "We just got a new batch of silver leaf mint. It smells wonderful." Alan pointed at the bundle of withered vines. "Can I see that?" Aunt Martha hesitated. "That? Nothing special. Just a bunch of dead vines." Aunt Martha looked at him for a few seconds, then sighed and handed over the withered vine. "All right, if you like it, take it and play. Just be careful not to cut yourself, though it probably won't hurt anyone." When Alan took the vine, it felt cold and hard, like stone. The surface was deeply cracked, resembling a dried riverbed that had been parched for many years. It was lighter than it looked, as if hollow inside. Alan focused his mind and reached out with his faint awareness to the vine. Then he heard it, a tiny, slow heartbeat, about 15 seconds apart. Listening more carefully, he realized it was not just a heartbeat but a rhythm, something similar to the flow of pale veins beneath the dark soil deep inside the cave, but older and more obscure. This thing was definitely not simple. "Grandma Martha, how much is this?" Alan asked, lifting his head. "Do you want it?" Aunt Martha waved her hand. "Take it, no charge. It's a free gift." "No, I can't," Alan said seriously. "Dad said I shouldn't take things from others for free." He took a small cloth bag from his pocket, containing the money he had saved from selling glow moss cultivation boxes over the past days, a total of 12 silver coins and 7 copper coins. He counted out 5 silver coins and placed them on the stall. 5 silver coins, is that enough?" Aunt Martha looked at the 5 coins, then at Alan's serious face, and suddenly smiled. "You're a good kid. All right, 5 silver coins, deal. But I have to warn you, this might just be a dead piece of wood. Don't get your hopes up too high." "I understand," Alan nodded, carefully holding the vine close to his chest. On the way home, he walked quickly, his heart pounding. Not because he spent 5 silver coins, though that was almost half of his savings, but because, when he held the vine, the door to his soul's innermost chamber, for the first time, vibrated actively. It wasn't the faint resonance triggered by moonlight magic before, but a clear, rhythmic vibration, as if responding to something. The vine's faint heartbeat every 15 seconds. The door's gentle tremor every 15 seconds. They were perfectly synchronized. Alan almost ran back home. He rushed into his small room, locked the door, placed the vine on his bed, then sat cross-legged, sinking his consciousness deep into his soul. Humans still floated there, but the surface glow was more lively than usual, gently rippling like water waves. The door seemed to be longing for something. Alan withdrew his inner sight and looked at the withered vine on the bed. He reached out and gently touched the surface of the vine. It felt cold, but this time, when his finger touched the cracked lines, the heartbeat of the withered vine sped up, from once every 15 seconds to every 10 seconds, then 5, 3, 1. Finally, it stabilized at once per second. Thump, 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 like a long sleeping heart slowly waking up. At the same time, the vibration of human grew stronger and stronger. Alan clenched his teeth and made a decision. He picked up the withered vine, closed his eyes, and focused all his mind, imagining sending it into the secret realm, just like when he sent in seeds and soil samples before. But this time, he met resistance. The withered vine seemed to resist, not consciously, but because its sense of existence was too strong, too heavy, like a stone that needed greater force to move. Cold sweat appeared on Alan's forehead. He summoned all his mental strength, and the true energy circulating in his chest sped up wildly, even beginning to draw on the small amount of magical energy stored inside him. Buzz, human let out a low hum. The withered vine disappeared from the real world. In the next second, inside the secret realm, above the black land, the bundle of withered vine appeared out of nowhere, then did not land. It floated in midair, just below the glowing sphere, slowly spinning. The light from the sphere shone on the vine, causing the cracked lines to glow. Not reflected light, but a faint golden glow emanating from inside. Thump, thump, thump. The heartbeat echoed clearly within the secret realm. Even more astonishing changes happened. The cracked lines on the surface of the withered vine began healing, not by growing new skin, but by the cracks themselves glowing and closing. Like dry land meeting rain, the fissures were gradually filled. At the same time, the color of the vine was changing, from grayish-brown, slowly turning to deep brown, then to a warm, bark-like yellow-brown. This process was very slow. Alan watched inside the hidden world for a full 10 minutes, about 2 seconds in real time, during which the withered vine grew less than 1 centimeter. He could feel the energy of the hidden world being rapidly drained by the vine. Warning: high-purity life energy being absorbed. Energy reserves: 0.7223%, 0.7222%, 0.7221%. Absorption rate: 0.0001% per second. Estimated energy depletion time. 2 hours, 1 minute, and 40 seconds. He was losing 0.36% of energy every hour. At this rate, the energy he spent a whole month gathering would only last less than 2 hours. Alan's heart sank. But he didn't cut off the energy supply immediately. He kept watching. 5 more minutes, about 10 seconds in real time, passed, and the vine shrank about 1 millimeter, not breaking, but seeming to contract, becoming denser. The healed part turned a rich brown yellow, smooth and shining like jade. Most importantly, a small bud had appeared at the cut edge, about the size of a grain of rice, bright green, full of life. This thing was still alive, and it was absorbing energy from the hidden world, possibly undergoing some kind of revival or evolution. Alan withdrew from the hidden world. Back in the real world, he opened his eyes, his face pale from the mental effort. The mental energy he used just now was too much, but his eyes sparkled with excitement. He had found a treasure. Although he didn't know exactly what this withered vine was, its ability to resonate with the Jade Gate and absorb energy for self-repair meant it was definitely not an ordinary object. Sunken mine. Sealed stone chamber. Jade box. Alan recalled the words of the adventurer. If what he said was true, this vine might be an ancient relic, possibly left behind by a previous civilization. And now, it was in his hands. The question was, what should he do? Continue to let it absorb energy from the hidden world? With the current rate, he simply couldn't afford it. In 2 hours, the energy would run out, and the hidden world would close and go into sleep mode. Would the vine die then? Would the Jade Gate be damaged? Cut off the energy supply? That would stop the vine's revival process, or even cause it to regress. Alan was caught in a difficult choice. He sat by the bed, staring at the empty bed. The withered vine was already inside the hidden world, and thought hard. Finally, he came up with a compromise plan. The flow of time in the hidden world can be adjusted. If he slows down the time in the area where the withered vine is, perhaps to 1/10 of the outside, or even reverse it, in theory, the hidden world can speed up time. So could it slow it down? Alan sank back into his consciousness. This time, he focused and gave an order to the floating withered vine. Center this object, within a radius of 1 meter, adjust the flow of time to 1/10 of the outside. As soon as he gave the command, the glow of the light sphere flickered slightly. The space around the withered vine showed a barely noticeable twist, like looking through rippling hot water, with the scenery slightly shimmering. Then, the energy consumption rate decreased. Time flow adjustment, 10:1, external, internal, energy consumption rate, 0.00001% per second, estimated energy depletion time. 200 hours it consumes 0.036% per hour, which is 1/10 of the original rate. The speed of the vine's recovery also visibly slowed down. The buds almost stopped growing, and healing slowed to nearly imperceptible levels. But at least, it was still recovering, just much more slowly. This can be accepted, Alan sighed in relief. At 0.036% per hour, he could replenish about 0.003% daily through meditation and natural recovery, with a net loss of 0.033% per hour. If he allowed the vine to recover for 1 hour each day, his energy reserves could slowly grow. More importantly, he gained a buffer time to study what exactly this withered vine is, and how to more efficiently gather energy to support its recovery. He left the hidden world, slumping into a chair, feeling somewhat drained. But his mood was excited. The mysterious withered vine, the ancient relic, the existence that resonates with the hidden world, all pointed to one possibility. This vine might be connected to the hidden world, or even to his crossing through dimensions. Outside the door, Evelyn called out, "Alan, dinner is ready." "Coming." Alan responded and stood up. Before leaving the room, he took one last look at the bed. The withered vine was gone, but that strange, slow heartbeat feeling still echoed in his ears. During dinner, Alan was a bit distracted. His mind was full of withered vines, secret worlds, and energy consumption rates. "Alan," Old Hawk's voice pulled him back to reality. "Your 5th birthday is the day after tomorrow. Are you ready for the test at the Knowledge Temple?" Alan looked up. "Ready? For what?" "Psychological preparation," Old Hawk said, putting down his fork with a serious look. "The church's test, even if it's just a preliminary one, will affect how the priests see you. If they think you have talent, they might recommend you to the church school or give you some special attention. Special attention? Alan caught that phrase. Evelyn took over the conversation. The church usually has two attitudes toward talented children. One is to nurture them, provide resources, but expect them to serve the church in the future. The other is to monitor them, to make sure their talent doesn't lead them astray or harm society. Lead them astray, like falling into evil beliefs or studying forbidden knowledge, Old Hawk said quietly. Over the years, there have been a few cases like that in Silverlight City. Talented children being misled by cults, causing big problems. So, the church's monitoring of talented people is actually a form of protection. Alan was silent for a few seconds, then asked, "What if I am just average in talent?" "That would be the best," Evelyn smiled, though it was a bit forced. "Grow up peacefully, learn a craft, get married, have children, and live a safe life. Your parents just want you to be safe." Alan sensed his mother's worry in her words. She wasn't joking. She truly hoped his talent would be average, because that would be safer. "I understand," Alan nodded. "I'll do my best to behave, not to be outstanding, but to behave just right." After dinner, Alan returned to his room. Instead of studying the withered vine, he took out Grove's notes. He flipped to the last page, where Grove had added some small handwriting later. Alchemy begins with materials. But in this world, materials are ranked in 3, 6, 9 levels. Common goods, available at markets, with ordinary properties, good quality, carefully cultivated or wild harvested, with stable medicinal properties. Excellent quality, grown in special environments or with mutations, with outstanding medicinal effects. Rare quality, difficult to find, often with special benefits. As for the legendary sacred or divine quality, I have never seen them in my life, or they only exist in ancient texts. Alan looked at these lines and thought of the bundle of withered vines. They could resonate with the secret realm and absorb life energy to heal themselves. This is probably at least a rare level, maybe even higher. He closed his notebook, lay on the bed, and closed his eyes. His consciousness sank into the secret realm. The withered vines still floated under the light sphere, slowly spinning. The flow of time was slowed to 1/10 of the outside world, so they almost appeared still, except for a tiny bud, which was slowly expanding. Alan's mind approached and carefully observed the bud. It was light green, covered with a very thin, almost transparent membrane, with fine veins visible underneath. At the very tip of the bud, there was a faint golden glow, as small as a needle tip. It wasn't reflected light, but emitted from inside, like the flowing light on the Jade Gate. Alan's breath, if a consciousness could breathe, paused for a moment. He looked toward the Jade Gate. The flowing light on the Jade Gate's surface was also gently rippling, rhythmically echoing the heartbeat of the withered vines. Between them, there seemed to be some kind of resonance, a connection. And this connection did not exist before the vines entered the secret realm. In other words, the environment of the secret realm, or some of its traits, activated the vines and also triggered their resonance with the Jade Gate. So if the vines fully revived, what would happen? Would the Jade Gate change as well? Would the secret realm upgrade, expand, or unlock new functions? Countless guesses swirled in Alan's mind. But ultimately, they all boiled down to one real issue: energy. To support the revival of the vines, energy is needed. A lot of energy. Currently, with only 0.72% of reserves and a consumption rate of 1/10, it could only last less than 30 days, if he let it revive for 1 hour each day. And how long would it take for the vines to fully revive? He didn't know. Maybe months, years, or even decades. A more efficient way to obtain energy must be found. The Moonlight Guidance method is far too slow. Leyline nodes, mana veins, magical energy within living beings, special celestial events. Alan quietly repeated the energy sources listed in the book. Leyline nodes and mana veins were far beyond the reach of a 4-year-old child. Magical energy within living beings. Did that mean hunting magical creatures? That was even less realistic. Special celestial events were rare and unpredictable. That left only one path: improving his own ability to absorb and convert magical energy. In other words, training. Real, systematic training, not the unstructured meditation he was doing now. And the most direct way to gain access to proper training methods was through the church, the temple of knowledge. Alan opened his eyes. In the darkness, they shone with determination. The test the day after tomorrow had originally been something he planned to face passively. But now, he had a new reason to go. He needed to show enough talent to earn a chance to enter the church's school and study real knowledge. But not too much, or he would attract unwanted attention and surveillance. That balance had to be perfect. Outside the window, the silver moon hung high. Alan sat up and began to prepare. He opened a wooden box, taking out a vial of calming potion, a small handful of moonlight moss grown in his hidden space, a few petals of mutated golden marigold, and a short piece of spider vine. These were his results, things he could safely show. Then he began to picture the test in his mind. If the priest asks what I'm interested in, I'll say plants and potions. If they ask me to demonstrate, I'll make a basic infusion but intentionally make 1 or 2 small mistakes. If they test my soul wavelength, I'll keep it between 7.2 and 7.5, slightly above average, but not remarkable. If they test my mana affinity, that's tricky. I've never measured it, so I don't know what I'm attuned to. Alan thought for a moment and decided to adapt when the time came. But no matter what, his bottom line was clear. Never reveal his hidden space. Never reveal his past life memories, and never reveal the existence of the withered vine. As for everything else, he could show a bit of early talent and curiosity. After all, a 5-year-old child interested in potion making is rare, but not unheard of. Having made his plan, Alan lay down again. His consciousness sank back into the hidden world. He took a quick look at the floating withered vine. The golden light on the bud seemed a little brighter than before. Just a tiny bit, almost unnoticeable. But Alan sensed it. Just wait, he whispered softly, speaking to the withered vine and himself. Once I become stronger and find more energy, I will make you fully revive. Then, I want to see what you really are. The withered vine floated quietly, its heartbeat slow but steady. Thump, thump, thump. It seemed to respond. On the morning of his 5th birthday, Alan was awakened by the noise outside the window. It wasn't the roar of a steam engine or the long honk of a horn, but the chatter of people and a sharp whistle. He got out of bed and pushed open the window. The street in the 6th Gear District was crowded with people. They wore work clothes, aprons, and some even ran out in pajamas. Everyone looked up, pointing at the sky, with faces showing fear and curiosity. Alan looked where they pointed. The sky had split open. No, it wasn't a real crack. High above the clouds, far away, 3 huge dark red tears stretched across the sky. The edges of the tears glowed like molten lava, with a deep darkness in the center, as if leading to an unknown space. The tears slowly spun and moved, like wounds with a life of their own. Void rifts. His father, Old Hawk, spoke in a deep voice nearby. Alan turned to see his parents standing at the door, their faces serious as they looked at the sky. "Dad, what is that?" Alan asked, though he already had a faint idea. "Void rifts," Old Hawk repeated. "They are passages connecting our world to the abyssal plane. Or wounds. Will they fall down?" Evelyn's voice trembled a little. "Usually not. The rifts appear high in the sky, at least tens of thousands of meters above the ground. But," Old Hawk paused, "sometimes things come out of them. Flying abyss creatures, or worse things." As if to prove his point, a sharp, glass-like screech came from the distant horizon. A dark shadow emerged from the largest crack, circling in the air before diving towards Silver Glow City. "Alert! It's a winged demon. All residents, go to the shelter now," shouted the sheriff on the street, accompanied by urgent whistles. The city's defense system activated. At the edge of the city, the tall towers that had been still suddenly lit up with bright white light at their tops. The light gathered into beams that shot into the sky, forming a huge, semi-transparent web of light among the clouds. The diving winged demon crashed into the light web, letting out a loud, piercing scream. Its black scales touched the white beams, sparking brightly. The demon was pushed back, but more shadows poured out from the cracks. "Quick, go to the basement." Old Hawk pulled Alan and Evelyn and rushed downstairs. Hawk's basement was small, filled with clutter and winter supplies. The family huddled inside, hearing explosions, screams, and heavy thuds like giant beasts stomping the ground. Alan sat on a bag of flour, his palms sweaty. This wasn't his first time facing a supernatural crisis. He had seen similar scenes many times in his previous life in the cultivation world. But back then, he was at least a third-level chi cultivator with some ability to protect himself. Now, he was just a 5-year-old child in a completely unfamiliar world, facing monsters from another dimension. A cold wave of helplessness washed over him. "Don't be afraid, Alan." Evelyn hugged him tightly. "Silver Glow City has a protective magic array, and the church and city guards are here. It will be fine." But her voice trembled too. Old Hawk found an old steam rifle among the clutter, its barrel rusty, unsure if it still worked. He checked the ammunition calmly, though his fingers turned white from the tension. The tremors lasted about half an hour before gradually calming down. After another 10 minutes, the basement door was knocked on. "It's safe. The abyss cracks are closing, and all invading monsters have been cleared." "Repeat. It's safe now." Old Hawk carefully peeked through a crack in the door, confirming it was neighbor Mr. Miller, then fully opened the door. Back on the surface, the street was a mess. Several buildings had their roofs torn off, steam pipes burst, and white high-pressure steam hissed into the sky. In the distance, the city defense's steam-powered mechs are clearing the battlefield. These are 3-meter-tall humanoid machines made of brass and steel, wielding giant chainsaw swords or flamethrowers, dragging broken, smoke-emitting bodies together. Those bodies are hard to describe. Some have bat-like wings and sharp claws, some look like enlarged insects, and others are just writhing masses of flesh. "Deep abyss creatures," Alan murmured. This was the first time he saw the enemy of this world with his own eyes. Not illustrations from books, not legends, but real, bloody, and smelling of burnt flesh. Fortunately, it was just a small infiltration, Mr. Miller said, still shaken. "I heard that 20 years ago, a rift opened directly above the city, and a giant abyss beast fell, destroying half of the eastern district." Evelyn covered her mouth. Old Hawk silently patted his wife's shoulder. Alan watched as the steam mech's flamethrowers turned the bodies to ash, black smoke rising and blending into the sky through 3 slowly closing rifts. It wasn't until noon that the city defense announced the end of the alert. But everyone was told, avoid the suburbs for now, especially the ashen forest and abandoned mines to the west, as the abyssal aura might trigger monster uprisings. "The test at the Temple of Knowledge," Alan whispered. "Will it still go on as usual?" Old Hawk and Evelyn exchanged a look. "I'll go ask," Old Hawk said. Half an hour later, he returned with a complicated expression. "The priest at the temple said the test will proceed as planned. And, because of today's events, there might be some special projects added." "Special projects?" Alan felt a knot tighten in his stomach. "Resistance tests against abyss corruption," Old Hawk said solemnly. "The church suspects that some children might have unknowingly come into contact with abyss-tainted objects, or might naturally have an affinity for abyss energy." Evelyn's face turned pale instantly. "What will they do to Alan?" "It's just a test, not a trial." Old Hawk held his wife's hand. "And if he does have resistance, it could actually be a good thing. The church will focus on him and provide more protection." But Alan sensed uncertainty in his father's words. Lunch was tasteless. At 1 p.m., the family set out for the Temple of Knowledge. The temple is located in the center of Silver Glow City. It is a grand white stone building with a dark blue-tiled roof. In the middle, there is a large metal sculpture of an eye made of gears and lenses, symbolizing the Eye of Knowledge. When Alan entered the hall, he was amazed by what he saw. The hall's dome is 30 meters high and decorated with beautiful murals. The paintings show how humans moved from ignorance to civilization, inventing steam engines, discovering magic energy, building cities, and fighting against the abyss. In the center of the dome, there is a huge, slowly spinning crystal ball. Inside, colorful lights flow, making the whole hall look like a dream. "Hawk family has an appointment at 2 p.m. for the talent prediction test," said the priest behind the reception desk. A young woman in a white robe was there, wearing a badge with gears and books crossed. She looked at the register and nodded. "Please follow me." They were taken to a side room. Inside, about a dozen families waited, all with children. The children ranged from 3 to 8 years old. Some clung nervously to their parents' clothes, while others looked around curiously. Alan found a corner to sit and watch. The tests were done in small private rooms. Each child went in alone, and after about 20 minutes, they came out, some excited, some disappointed, and a few crying. That child has zero affinity for magic energy, a mother whispered to her husband nearby. They are destined to never be a wizard, just an ordinary person. Being an ordinary person isn't so bad, the husband sighed. At least it's safe. Alan listened quietly. It was his turn after an hour. Alan Hawke, the woman in white, called his name. Old Hawke and Evelyn shook his hands at the same time. Don't be nervous. Just do your best. Alan nodded and followed the woman into the testing room. The room was small, about 20 square meters. The walls were plain white with no decorations. In the center, there was a metal table. Behind it sat a middle-aged man in a silver-trimmed white robe. His badge was more complex than the receptionist's. Besides gears and books, it also had an open eye. The priest had several instruments in front of him, a headband embedded with crystals, a metal disc inscribed with runes, and a few small devices that Alan didn't recognize. Sit, the priest said calmly, pointing to the chair across the table. Alan sat down, trying to look like an ordinary child, slightly nervous, curious, but not shy. I am Elder Wynn, responsible for today's preliminary test, the priest said, opening a folder. Alan Hawke, 5 years old. His father is a steam core technician, and his mother is a rune weaver. Records show he was baptized at 6 months old, with a soul wavelength of 7.2, which is normal. He looked up at Alan. I hear you're interested in plants and magic potions? Yes, sir, Alan nodded. I like watching plants grow, and I also like mixing things. Mixing things? Elder Wynn raised an eyebrow. What have you mixed before? I practiced making potions with flour and water, Alan said honestly. And I planted some plants in the backyard. Some are growing very well. He deliberately didn't mention glow moss or calming potions. Show me. Elder Wynn pushed a tray toward him, with small bottles and a test tube on it. Use these materials to make a basic calming potion. Alan's heart skipped a beat, but on the outside, he looked hesitant. I only read about it. I haven't actually made one. It's okay. Do it as you understand, Elder Wynn said, his eyes sharp. Alan took a deep breath and started to work. He deliberately moved slowly, pretending to be inexperienced. When measuring, his hand shook a little, spilling some calming flower pollen. When heating, he forgot to control the fire, letting the liquid boil a bit longer. When stirring, he miscounted the turns, stopping after 25 circles. The final potion was dark in color, with some foam on the surface and a slightly burnt smell. It's a failure, Alan said, lowering his head. Elder Wynn didn't say anything. He picked up the test tube, brought it close to his nose to smell, then looked at it under the light. Then, he took out a small device from his drawer, about the size of a palm, shaped like a pocket watch, with hands and markings on the surface. He dropped a drop of the potion onto the device's metal probe, and the needle started to turn. A few seconds later, the needle stopped at a certain point. Potency concentration. 32%. Reverend Edwin looked up, a hint of surprise in his eyes. For a first practical attempt, and with so many mistakes, retaining 30% of the potency is impressive. Your understanding of the material's nature is better than most beginners. Alden's heart sank. He intentionally made mistakes to avoid performing too well. But he didn't expect that, even with such results, his talent would be noticed. Next is the official test. Reverend Edwin put away the instrument and picked up the crystal-embedded headband. Put this on. Relax, don't resist. The cold metal of the headband made Alden shiver. Once on, the crystal pressed against his forehead, sending a slight tingling sensation. Now, look at this disc. Reverend Edwin activated the runes on the metal disc. The disc began to glow, its light growing stronger, shifting from white to rainbow colors. Meanwhile, Alden felt a gentle but irresistible force scanning his body from head to toe. The crystal on the headband also started to glow, its brightness changing with the disc's light. After a minute, the scan finished. Reverend Edwin looked at the glowing words appearing on the disc, his brow slightly furrowed. Spirit wavelength, 7.5. Slightly higher than during baptism. Normal. Magical energy affinity. Fire 3, Water 2, Wind 1, Earth 1, Light 1, Dark. Cannot be detected. Overall rating. Average to low. Alden exhaled in relief. Average to low is good. Mental strength. 8.7. Reverend Edwin paused, then looked at Alden. This value is quite high for a 5-year-old. The normal range is 3 to 5. Damn. Alden cursed silently. His high mental strength might be due to the overlapping of two souls from different lives, which he can't control. Resistance to abyssal corruption, none. Abyssal energy affinity, none. Reverend Edwin continued reading. Elemental balance, good. Soul stability, excellent. He put down the recording board and looked at Alden for a few seconds. Overall assessment. You have the potential to become a wizard, but your magical energy affinity is low, limiting future development. Your mental strength is outstanding, suitable for precise control fields, such as potion making. Alden's heart lifted. Will the church, noticing his strong mental power, make him a key observation target? However, Reverend Edwin suddenly changed his tone. Your practical skills are quite inexperienced. You might learn some theory through reading, but making potions requires thousands of practice attempts and learning from failures. Having strong mental power alone can't make up for that. He pushed over a chart. This shows the test results and suggestions. Your talent is above average, but not outstanding. I recommend you take a formal magic resonance test at age 7, then decide your path. Until then, you can read related books, but avoid trying dangerous experiments, especially potion making, as many ingredients are toxic. Yes, sir, Alan replied respectfully, taking the chart. Also, Reverend Edwin took out a small booklet from his drawer. This is the church's basic meditation method, child-safe version. Your mental strength is high, so you can practice it, but no more than half an hour each day, or it might harm your still-developing brain. Thank you, sir. As Alan left the testing room, his back was already soaked with sweat. He had succeeded. His performance showed he was gifted but not outstanding, which meant he wouldn't attract too much attention but could still access some basic resources, like that meditation booklet. In the hall, Old Hawk and Evelyn waited anxiously. When they saw Alan come out, they hurried over. How did it go? Evelyn asked. Alan handed them the chart. Old Hawk quickly glanced at it, and then let out a long sigh of relief. Average is a bit low, but it's okay, it's okay. Evelyn also relaxed. High mental power is good. It shows Alan is smart. Low magic affinity doesn't matter much. He can't be a wizard, but he could be a mechanic or scholar. They seemed quite satisfied with the result. But Alan knew things weren't that simple. During the test, when the light from the disc swept over his chest, where the jade gate was, he clearly felt it vibrate slightly, then contract, as if it was consciously hiding itself. And the crystal in his headband flickered abnormally for a moment when detecting his mental power, but quickly returned to normal. Reverend Edwin might not have noticed, or maybe he did, but didn't care. But Alan didn't dare to bet on it. On the way home, he remained silent. Until evening, after locking the door and sinking into a peaceful state of mind, he felt a little calmer when he saw the withered vine. A day passed inside the peaceful space. The vine's recovery was very slow. Time was moving at 1/10 the normal speed. But the small green bud had already grown to the size of a soybean, and its thin surface membrane had become transparent, revealing delicate, light golden veins inside. The golden light at the tip of the bud was even brighter now. Alan's consciousness moved closer to observe carefully. Then, he heard a voice. It wasn't a sound through his ears but a faint, broken whisper directly in his mind. That hungry. So hungry. Energy. Not enough. Alan was surprised. Does this withered vine have awareness? Who are you? He tried to communicate with his mind. Devouring. Demon. Vine. Leftover. Spirit. Came the broken message, like a poor signal broadcast. Master. Master? A thought struck Alan. Can you speak? Energy. Insufficient. Consciousness. Shattered. Need. More. Energy. What kind of energy do you need? Life. Magic. All okay. Preferably. From the abyss. Aura. Abyssal aura? Alan remembered the sky rifts he saw during the day, the monsters emerging from the abyss. Abyssal aura. Is that food for you? Delicious. Nourishing. But dangerous. Will be contaminated. The leftover spirit of the devouring demon, Vine, seemed to become more aware. Master. Be careful. Abyss. Cannot touch directly. Then, why did you become like this? Alan asked. Who sealed you in the jade box? A long silence. Just when Alan thought it had fallen back into sleep, broken messages came again. Ancient. War. Master. Died in battle. I was heavily wounded. Sealed. Sleeping. Until I met your aura and was awakened. Ancient War. Master died in battle? Alan wanted to ask more, but the remaining spirit of the magic-devouring vine was clearly at its limit. Its voice grew weaker and weaker. Energy. Please. Master, give me. Energy. I. Can. Help you. Devour. Magical energy. Transform. Purify. I. Am. The magic-devouring vine, feeding on magic, nourishing on magic. The voice disappeared completely. The golden light on the bud dimmed, as if exhausted. Alan stepped out of the secret realm, sat on the bed, and remained silent for a long time.